What I'm about to read is from a sermon called Buck O'Neil, Loving You, based upon the 15th chapter of John, verses 12 through 17. More important than any of Buck O'Neil's baseball and civic accomplishments was the simple, profound fact that Buck lived a life of love. For all of the adult stretch of his 94 years, Buck lived a life of love. Beginning in Florida and all through the baseball barnstorming days on the road and throughout his tenure with the Monarchs and then the Cubs and then the Royals and then with the Negro League Baseball Museum, Buck lived a life of love. He embodied exquisitely and eloquently the love ethic as we have heard it in the Gospel of John in the 15th chapter. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Buck lived out this ethic in his own unique way. He lived it out first and foremost by dismissing the option of bitterness. He consistently dismissed the option to be bitter about anything or anyone. In the degradation of segregation in Florida, he didn't get bitter, he got better as a baseball player. And he got out of his celery field overalls and into a baseball uniform. When he didn't get to play in the show, having only ever played in the Negro Leagues, he didn't express bitterness. Instead, he worked to get others into the game and then later Negro League stars into the Hall of Fame. And when he missed being voted into the Hall of Fame by one meager vote, he was surely crestfallen inwardly, but he didn't show it outwardly. "Old Buck's going to be all right," he said. "Buck's already in the Hall of Fame. I'm in the Friendship Hall of Fame," he said. The second way he lived out a life of love was by delighting in the daily. Every day was a beautiful day to Buck, and every person was beautiful to him. He would never regard anyone he met as beneath him or lower than himself. He would do as Jesus did, simply calling them his friends. His attention to the daily and his devotion to the loveliness in the ordinary was most clearly evident in his loving relationship with his wife, Oralee. And he loved her with fierce loyalty and a special grace when she was discovered to have cancer. As the Kansas City Star reported, Buck would call her years of fighting the disease the greatest 15 years of my life. Above and beyond dismissing the option of bitterness and delighting in the daily, Buck lived a life of love by daring to love others first. We were privileged to host Buck at Community Christian Church on numerous occasions, at a steak cookout sponsored by the Men's Fellowship, during a Colors Juneteenth celebration, in a Martin Luther King interfaith service, and he always came dressed impeccably and ready to go with a huge smile on his face. He always seemed interested in your welfare and what you were doing. He was genuinely interested in what was going on with you, what was going on in the world, and how he and you and how we could make it better. This was even true at the end of Buck's life, when his strength was ebbing away, when he had lost much of his zip and most of his pizzazz. Even then, though, he expressed his love for others. In Buck O'Neil, we have beheld not a perfect person, but one who sought to live, as best he could, a life of love that dismissed the option of bitterness, that delighted in the daily, and that dared to love others first before anything else. It was natural then, and perfectly in tune with the gist and grit of the gospel, that Buck's famous theme song was "The Greatest Thing." The greatest thing in all the world is loving you. The greatest thing in all the world is loving you. The greatest thing in all the world is loving you. The greatest thing in all the world is loving you. May we learn to sing it in our own day, in our own way, in our own key. And when we do not be surprised if there arises from the celestial realm beyond a heavenly and harmonious echo, and a great and glorious laugh from Buck O'Neill. Amen.